Good afternoon and welcome to Maine Avenue Ministries' 21st Annual Scholarship and Education Program. I am Dr. Mary Ivy, President and founder of Maine Avenue Ministries. We are truly blessed by your support in helping us provide scholarships and monetary support to students who might not have the means to attend an institution of higher learning otherwise. Because of your support and others like yourselves, Maine Avenue Ministries has been able to provide needed support to motivated students. And as we said before, and some of you may not have heard, several of our Maine Avenue Ministries scholarship recipients are joining us or helping to put this program on today. And that is what makes it a part of the special event that it is because it's a part of our scholarship group working with us, helping us, and showing us what they're doing with their lives and with the scholarship money that they have received. But before we go any further, I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge our honorary chairperson, Stacy Stewart, president of Stewart Funeral Home in Washington, D.C. Stewart Funeral Home is the oldest continuous Black family-owned funeral home in the nation's capital. Unfortunately, Stacy could not be with us today, but she tasked me with this to say, that she sends her love and best wishes for a great afternoon of participatory enjoyment and education. We thank Stacy. Now, as you know, attending an institution of higher learning can be incredibly expensive. What sets Maine Avenue Ministries apart is our holistic approach to assessing merit. Our focus is not on a student's resume and grades, but rather on their story and their vision for their lives. Maine Avenue Ministries is about ministering to people in various situations. Our ministry provides outreach services of all types, including worship, weddings, funerals, counseling, and charitable campaigns and contributions. In 2017, the Love, Race, and Grace program was launched under the umbrella of Maine Avenue Ministries. The goal of Love, Race, and Grace is to partner with other like-minded organizations to revitalize and remake the landscape of our cities and that our country loves. Love, Race, and Grace are acronyms that embody the goals of the program, and we will share those with you. Love stands for Let's Overcome Violence Everywhere. Race, reaching across color lines everywhere. And Grace, great relationships and cultural education. Last month, we attended the 100th anniversary of the Black Wall Street Massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma. While in Tulsa, I was invited to be interviewed by NBC6. The news anchor was Ashley Isbicki and had a wonderful opportunity to share Love, Race, and Grace program, our Love, Race, and Grace program with America. So today, we publicly thank NBC and our lovely anchor, Ashley, and her crew for providing the platform for Maine Avenue Ministries. And now we are prepared to share that clip with you.
This weekend, the Tulsa Symphony Orchestra is hosting a special concert to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And one woman traveled here to Oklahoma all the way from Washington, D.C. to be here for the event and other commemorative events that have been happening this week. Mary Ivy joining us here live in the studio with her story. Miss Ivy, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Let's just start with your story and your connection to Oklahoma.
I was born in Oklahoma. I was educated in Oklahoma. And I have a home actually in Oklahoma, in Cookson, Oklahoma. I just decided that I would do it all at one time. And I have an aunt who's 99 years old. I also went to her funeral in Kansas City, Missouri. And I have a program called Love, Race, and Grace. Love, let's overcome violence everywhere. Race, reaching across color lines everywhere. and grace, great relationships and cultural education. What better place could I be but at the Tulsa Massacre Centennial?
What have you thought of Tulsa so far and the way that the city, the community, and the country has really commemorated the centennial?
I have been impressed. I have been pleased. And what I do hope is that the spirit of what has gone on here, the love, the warmth, and everything will be continuous, not just here in Tulsa, not just here in Oklahoma, but all over the world.
Let's talk about Sunday's performance, the Tulsa Symphony Orchestra's performance to commemorate the massacre. What are you most looking forward to?
I'm most looking forward to hearing Wynton Marsalis and seeing hopefully a lot of interesting people, I understand, who are here and plan to attend, and just having a joyous evening, having a good time in everything that we do, in race relationships, in his music. His music draws people into good relationships. And so the world needs more love and more good relationships right now and forever.
And speaking of love and good relationships, what have you felt over the past week? You know, it is such a heavy topic, but one that needs to be a conversation that is happening in everyone's homes. What are some of the thoughts and perhaps memories and feelings that you've experienced since your time here?
Well, I've experienced just what I shared with you. I've experienced the love, the warmth, the understanding, just the whole commemorative spirit. But what I hope to do in terms of love, race, and grace is to have mass media join with me, NBC, ABC, CBS, everybody, because it takes all of us to have the best time in the world with one good, outstanding America. We are outstanding Americans, and we should all act like it.
Ms. Mary, I love that so much. Thank you so much for coming here to News on 6 to share your story. I hope you are continuing to enjoy your time in Tulsa, here in Green Country, and you're getting to see some people and some friends. Thank you so much again for joining us, and enjoy that symphony performance this weekend.
Thank you, Autumn, for sharing that. Love, Race, and Grace did launch this program in Washington, D.C., 2017 at Shiloh Baptist Church. And we did it because we saw a need that our ministry had observed, that many of our youth need to be mentored for the improvement of our society. And so we encourage all of our scholarship recipients and all of our communities at large to embrace the message and purpose of love, race, and grace. Each of us has a responsibility to assist in creating healthier individuals, families, and safer communities across the nation. And so we invite each of you to partner with Maine Avenue Ministries to carry out the mission of love, race, and grace. And before we get started too far along, we want to stop before we get to our leadership spotlight. On behalf of the Honorable Muriel Bowser, Mayor of the State of the District of Columbia, we have a message from the Honorable Kimberly Bassett, Secretary of State for the District of Columbia. And that message reads, "Greetings to Maine Avenue Ministries from the Office of the Secretary of the State of the District of Columbia. Wishing you a successful leadership and legacies program as you highlight the contributions of great leaders whose lives have served as catalysts and building blocks for the liberties we enjoy today." Our program today is entitled Leadership and Legacies, standing on our shoulders, the shoulders of our ancestors. And so we are always privileged when we have the opportunity to learn and benefit from the lessons of those who have gone before us. Those lives offer significant lessons in leadership, persistence, and accomplishment. These leaders today, through their struggles, have advanced the cause of equality and justice in our nation and around the world. So today we're going to learn about many leaders who have fought for the cause of equality and justice. Maine Avenue Ministries is excited to share today's program with all of you. And again, we're going to stop one more time because we want to introduce you to a beautiful young lady who is near and dear to our hearts. Her name is Amber McDonald. Amber is a Maine Avenue Ministries scholarship recipient. And she graduated from high school in Flower Mound, Texas. Currently, she attends Non-Peril Institute in Plano, Texas. Non-Peril, meaning without equal, is an information technology-based program for adults on the autistic spectrum. The good news is Amber will be transitioning from this program later this year to become a full-time author and illustrator. She has already completed her first book. The title is Finding the Moon. Finding the Moon. What a title. Amber's book is scheduled to be published later this year. Meet Amber now. Amber, the video time is for you to do what you need to do to share with what you want the people to know about how you feel about love, race, and grace, about love. Amber McDonald, everybody.
Hello, my name is Amber Tompkins, and I am happy to be joining you today for the Maine Avenue Ministries Leadership and Legacies program. Maine Avenue Ministries is important to me. This organization has really supported me and my dreams to accomplish great things. I am a young autistic adult who struggles with language. But despite my struggle, I am here today to speak to you about leadership and legacies. What is a leader? I believe a leader is someone who can inspire, support, and encourage others. The world needs leaders because in most places, things are out of balance, like the environment, lack of food and water, lack of housing and employment opportunity, for example. A leader looks at the problem, works on a solution, and motivates others to join in the struggle. This reminds me of two men I admired named John F. Kennedy and Barack Obama. John F. Kennedy was a fearless president who had the ability to motivate others to embrace civil rights for all people. He was assassinated because of his political beliefs and his courage in facing a difficult subject. John F. Kennedy left a great legacy because of the care that he showed towards others and his willingness to stand for what he believed in. I'm very sad that he was the president for such a short time. I believe he had a lot more to give. Whereas John F. Kennedy motivated people to act, Barack Obama inspired people to dream. He offered hope and change for a better country and world. One of his well-known sayings is, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person, or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek." I find these words so inspirational. To me, it means do what you think is right for all people. These are the words of a leader who believes that everyone has potential and invites us to join him in believing it too. Barack Obama is creating his legacy in real time. He is leaving his footprint on our nation and the world. He is still writing his story, still creating history, and so far so good. Through it all, I believe that both John F. Kennedy and Barack Obama are two great examples of leaders whose legacy will live on generation after generation. I hope you enjoyed the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. You truly inspire us with your courage and your poise. We are all convinced you will accomplish great things. Education is the bridge to a more financially secure future in America. Educators create the pathways across the educational bridge, and entrepreneurs evolve from educational experience. An experience that is guided by creativity and innovation. In fact, these two components, creativity and innovation, have been the definers of American dominance in the world marketplace. Let's enjoy a few of our educators and entrepreneurs. Now, we are told this is a historic program because no one has, that we know in the research we've done and the people we have spoken to, has ever honored all people who are deceased, our ancestors. Join us now.
I am Nellie Mae Quander, native of Washington, D.C., and graduate of Howard University, class of 1912. In 1908, 113 years ago, on the campus of Howard University, 16 young ladies, one generation removed from slavery, pursuing higher education in a segregated society without the right to vote, founded Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Despite racism and sexism, the vision of founder Ethel Hesron Lyle of an organization that could help women with like minds bond and combine their talents and strength to better mankind became reality. The sorority was birthed through their passion, spirit, and ideals, and the charge of service is the same today as it was when incorporated as a perpetual body in 1913. I am the chief incorporator of the sorority and the first president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Following my 1910 initiation into the sorority, I served as the Alpha chapter president in 1912 and graduated magna cum laude in June 1912 in history, economics, and political science. Yes, in 1913, I became the first president of the sorority, but my tenure as president was preceded by a very stormy and challenging period, requiring tireless work, because in October 1912, I heard firsthand the proposals to shatter the ideals and principles upon which the sorority had been founded. I understood the severe consequences of such proposals, so I rallied AKA believers and led the effort with others to orchestrate a campaign that culminated in the incorporation of the sorority on January 29, 1913 in the District of Columbia as Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the perpetual organization. And so the story goes, Ethel made us, Nellie saved us.
Greetings. I am Septima Poinsett Clark, an African-American educator and civil rights activist who developed the literacy and citizenship workshops that played an important role in the drive for voting rights and civil rights for African Americans in the civil rights movement. I worked with Thurgood Marshall on a 1945 case that sought equal pay for black and white teachers. This was my first effort in a social action challenging the status quo. We won the case. In 1947, I took another teaching post in Charleston while maintaining my NAACP membership. In 1956, South Carolina made it illegal for public employees to belong to civil rights groups. I refused to renounce the NAACP. As a result, I lost my job. I was then hired by Tennessee's Highlander Folk School, and later, in 1961, I joined the SCLC as its Director of Education and Teaching. Under my leadership, more than 800 citizenship schools were created. December 15th, 1987, at age 89, I was born to eternal life. I know my family, friends, and AKA sorors were delighted to see my picture on the front cover of Brian Lanker's I Dream a World, Portraits of Black Women Who Changed America, and to learn that in 2020, the Treasury, United States Mint, honored me with an American Innovation Gold Coin for South Carolina. To God be the glory.
Hi, I'm Carter G. Woodson. Those who endeavor to understand their own history are paving a path towards a brighter future. To understand Black history was a way to destroy the miseducation of the Negro, a book which I authored, which is still widely being used in many academic settings. African Americans in the early 20th century were not being taught enough about their own heritage and the achievements of their ancestors. I was born in 1875 in New Canton, Virginia. I worked as a sharecropper, miner, and various other jobs during my childhood to support my large family. I initially went to Berea College in Kentucky, and then went on to earn my bachelor's and master's degrees at the University of Chicago, after which I went to Harvard to earn a doctorate in history. After completing the University of Chicago, a group of like-minded friends and I founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. We published the Journal of Negro History, which was intended to bring attention to the achievements of Black Americans. In 1926, I sent a press release announcing Negro History Week. You ask why February? Well, that's because we celebrate the birthdays of both Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass during that month. Negro History Week was quickly embraced by schools and other organizations across the country. With the rise of the civil rights and Black Power movements in the 1960s, many young African Americans on college campuses became increasingly conscious of the historic dimensions of their experience and urged a shift from Negro History Week to Black History Month. I offered more than 20 books, including A Century of Negro Migration, The History of the Negro Church, and my most celebrated text, The Miseducation of the Negro. We now celebrate my humble Negro History Week as Black History Month, which continues to celebrate the importance of Black contributions to our society. Take off those chains of miseducation and awaken yourselves with knowledge and power, and say it loud that you're Black and you're proud.
Seems like I was born to struggle. My parents were born into slavery. Both my parents, Minerva and Owen Breelove, died when I was 7 years old. To escape a harsh childhood, I got married at 14. At the age of 17, I gave birth to a daughter. At 20, I was a widow. I worked as a washerwoman for 20 years, earning $1.50 a day. But I saved enough to send my daughter to college. In my late 30s, I suffered hair loss because of a combination of physical labor and lack of resources. I started experimenting with different ingredients, and I developed a formula to heal and clean my scalp. I trained Black women to use my hair product. As it became more popular, God blessed me to be in position to hire thousands of agents to go door to door and travel across the country selling and promoting my hair growth formula. In 1908, I opened a beauty college and factory because I want to create career opportunities for women who would otherwise become maids or cooks. As my wealth increased, this enabled me to fund scholarships for Black women to attend Tuskegee Institute. I've given one of the largest donations ever to the NAACP, and I've been their keynote speaker to make anti-lynching a federal crime. I hired the first Black designer to build my mansion. The mansion was built to hold social gatherings and to be an inspiration to Black people. Today, I'm widely known for the first Black female self-made millionaire, and I have learned that you cannot sit down and wait for opportunity to come. We have to get up and make opportunities. My birth name is Sarah. I was born December 23rd, 1867. I am Madam C.J. Walker.
I was born in South Carolina in 1875. My parents were Samuel and Patsy McLeod, who were former slaves. After the Civil War, my mother worked for the former owner, picking cotton until she could buy the land where the cotton was grown. I benefited from the efforts of many organizations to educate free slaves by graduating from the Scotia Seminary in North Carolina and attending the Institute for Home and Foreign Missions in Chicago. I became an educator in South Carolina, where I met and married Albertus Bethune, a fellow teacher. We had one son. When the marriage ended, I moved to Florida with our son, where I worked for the Presbyterian Church and sold insurance. The whole world opened for me when I learned to read. And I was determined to help Negro women get an education that would allow them to become independent. In 1904, with only $1.50 and my faith in God, I started the Educational and Industrial Training School for Negro girls. The school became a college, eventually merging with the all-male Cookman Institute to form the Bethune-Cookman College in 1929. I met Eleanor Roosevelt when she invited me to a meeting of the leaders of the nation's most prominent women's groups. We became close friends, and I advised her on various issues, but most importantly on those that affected the lives of Negroes. I later became advisor to her husband, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He appointed me Director of Negro Affairs in the National Youth Administration. I was a part of his unofficial Negro cabinet. I organized a conference on the problems of the Negroes and Negro youth, and despite Klan threats against me, I always covertly worked to end lynching and discrimination. I'm the founding president of the National Council of Negro Women. I had a quiet role in the transition of Negro voters from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. The NAACP in 1940 elected me vice president. In 1942, as a member of the advisory board that created the Women's Army Corps, I was able to ensure that it was racially integrated. I wrote for leading African American newspapers like the Pittsburgh Courier and the Chicago Defender. And as an appointee of President Harry S. Truman, I was the only woman of color at the founding conference of the United Nations in 1945. From the very first, I made my learning useful in every way I could. I've worked with presidents and social organizations encouraging fair treatment and education for Negroes. I believe we have a powerful potential in our youth, and we must have the courage to change old ideas and practices so that we may direct their power toward good ends.
Education is still the bridge to a more financially secure future in America. So now that we've heard from some of the educators and entrepreneurs, we hope you've been impressed with the experience that they shared. Now, we want you to note also that nothing enriches a nation more than its arts and sciences. Authors, musicians, artists, mathematicians, scientists, engineers, and it goes on and on. The contributors of the cultural fabric of our nation are innumerable, but have something intricately woven into the district and the contributions and the distinct contributions into a beautiful and rich tapestry known as America. So let's now learn about a few more of them. Join us.
Greetings. I know why the cage bird sings. 1969. I'm Dr. Maya Angelou. I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings made literary history as the first nonfiction bestseller by an African American woman. I'm a renowned poet, author of numerous autobiographies, essays, poetry, plays, movies, and television shows spanning over 50 years. I've received over 50 honorary degrees and awards. In 1959, I served as the Northern Coordinator for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. I worked with two different great civil rights activists, Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., until their assassinations. In 1968, I was encouraged by the novelist James Baldwin to write when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on my 40th birthday. I then created my groundbreaking memoir, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. My legacy is hope and freedom. My life mirrored the American landscape with a first-hand experience of racism, single parenting, overcoming poverty, seeking higher education, creating wealth, living through and participating in the civil rights movement. On January 20th, 1993, I recited On the Pulse of Morning for the presidential inauguration of Bill Clinton. The essence of the poem contrasts the nightmare of slavery and genocide to the dream that is the American dream, which implies equal opportunity for all. In 2000, I was awarded the National Medal of Arts by President Bill Clinton. In 2010, I was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the U.S., by President Barack Obama. Famous quote, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
My colleagues in the math and science community know me for my 33 years with NASA. The general population may know the depiction of me in the movie Hidden Figures. And some know me as the recipient for the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which was awarded by President Barack Obama. But let me give you a little backstory on who I am. I was born in 1918 in a small town in Greenbrier County, West Virginia. For African Americans, the public school only went up to the 8th grade, so my parents moved to Institute, West Virginia, and enrolled me in high school when I was 10 years old. I graduated at 14. I then went to West Virginia State in HBC, where I was mentored by Dr. Claytor, who was the third African American to receive a PhD in mathematics. I graduated with honors at 18 years old. Research mathematician was not a career open for African Americans, and definitely not for women. So I took a job in a black public school. In 1952, a relative told me about open positions for an all-black West Area computing section of the National Advisory Committee of Aeronautics. It later became NASA. I started in an office that was labeled the black computers. My job was to read the data from the black boxes on planes and to carry out other precise mathematical tasks. I was temporarily assigned to Langley's Flight Research Division, which was an all-white male engineers. I never got reassigned. From 1958 until my retirement, I worked as an aerospace technologist. I calculated the 1961 space flight for Alan Shepard, who was the first American in space. I also helped to ensure that the Freedom 7 Mercury capsule would be found quickly after landing. In the early days of the electronic computers, I plotted backup navigation charts for astronauts in case of electronic failures. Astronaut John Glenn refused to fly until I personally verified the calculations for his round-the-Earth trip. I worked on the Apollo 11 and the Apollo 13 as well as the Space Shuttle program. I retired in 1986 but continue to encourage students to enter the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, known as the STEM program. I died in 2020.
Yes, I was born to fly. I soared across the skies as the first African American and the first Native American woman pilot. Known for performing flying tricks, they call me Brave Bessie, Queen Bess, and the only race aviatrix in the world. I was born in Atlanta, Texas on January 26, 1892, and grew up helping my mother pick cotton and wash laundry. By the time I was 18, I saved enough money to attend what is now Langston University in Langston, Oklahoma. Unfortunately, I had to drop out after the first semester because I could not afford the tuition. Later, I went to live with my brothers in Chicago who told stories about serving in World War I. They teased me and said French women are allowed to learn how to fly airplanes, and I could not. Well, I decided I would become a pilot. My application was denied to flight schools in the U.S. because of race and gender, but someone encouraged me to move to France and learn to fly, and I did. The Caudron Brothers School of Aviation in France is where I earned my international pilot's license in 1921. In 1922, I performed the first public flight by an African American woman. You should see me. I'm famous for doing loop-the-loops and making the shape of an 8 in an airplane. One thing to know about me is this: I refuse to speak anywhere that is segregated or discriminates against African Americans. I survived my first major airplane accident in 1923. Thankfully, I healed from my injuries. Well, now I speak to you from the heavenly skies. My career ended with a tragic plane crash in 1926. I was flying with a mechanic who was piloting the plane. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt, the plane flipped over, and I fell to my death. Famous activist Ida B. Wells Barnett performed my funeral service. A pilots association started a tradition of flying over my grave every year in Chicago. A portion of Chicago O'Hare Airport is named in my memory, along with schools, parks, streets, and libraries. And the Bessie Coleman stamp was made to remember my accomplishments. Yes, indeed, I am Bessie Coleman.
Good afternoon, America. I'm Alex Haley. I was born in Ithaca, New York in 1921. After serving 20 years at the U.S. Coast Guard, I began a career as an author. The first book I wrote was the autobiography of Malcolm X, and though I have been told what an impact and value this book has had on multiple generations of Black and brown young people, my greatest literary achievement is the book Roots, published in 1976. Roots was the #1 bestseller for 22 consecutive weeks and sat on the New York Times bestseller list for 46 weeks. This book is exceptionally personal for me because it tells the story of my family's experience from Africa to present day. It covers the Great Passage, the lives lived during colonial America, and the emancipation towards the Reconstruction period to the birth of the 20th century. Roots sold 15 million copies and was adopted into a TV series that has been watched by over 177 million people worldwide. It introduced the greater society to characters like Kunta Kinte, Kizzy, Chicken George, slave owners Tom and George Lee, and many more. It put words, images, and stories to the experience of millions of people who lived through the atrocities of the slave era. To this day, the book and TV series, Roots, is viewed as a proxy for African American history during the slave era. The life and death cycle of countless slaves whose sweat equity built this country from the ground up, and a source of historical-based art that captured not only the evils our ancestors endured, but the spirit of resiliency and divine grace that saved them and allows us to stand on their shoulders today. I appreciate that Maine Avenue Ministries' Love, Race, and Grace theme keeps my humanitarian energy and courage intact for world leadership and legacy work.
Everyone loves to hear me sing. Known for my vocal improvisation, people talk about my inimitable style. They say my music is truth and the gateway to civil rights activism. I'm known as Lady Day, but my name is Billie Holiday. I was born in 1915. My daddy died and my mama left me with my grandparents. It was a tough life. We didn't have much. Somehow, I survived it and I became a singer. Throughout the 1930s and 40s, I had great success as a singer, but I also had lots of legal troubles because of the drugs. I was living in the South where black bodies were lynched just because. When I recorded the song, Strange Fruit, it was as if I was giving birth to the pain of my people. I sang, Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. The lyrics capture everything I felt, and they moved me. In my autobiography, I talk about strange fruit. I write, it reminds me how Pop died, but I have to keep singing, not only because people asked for it, but because 20 years after Pop died, the things that killed him are still happening in the South. Though the song Strange Fruit became my anthem, it was also my downfall. Black America embraced strange fruit, but the FBI did not. The Federal Bureau of Narcotics Commissioner Harry Anslinger, a well-known racist, called my music the devil's music, and he forbade me to perform Strange Fruit. I didn't listen, and he set out to destroy me. Anslinger knew that I was addicted to drugs, and he set me up. I spent a year and a half in prison, and when I was released, the FBI refused to reissue my performer's license, so I couldn't perform in the nightclubs anymore. I refused to quit, and I began performing to sold-out concerts at Carnegie Hall. But unfortunately, I fell back into using heroin. In 1959, I checked myself into a hospital in New York City. I found out I was suffering from heart and liver problems and cirrhosis of the liver. I was literally skin and bones by that time. Do you know that the racist Anslinger from the FBI sent armed officers to my hospital and handcuffed me to the bed? Then he barred the doctors from giving me any further treatment. I died shortly thereafter, they say from pulmonary edema and heart failure caused by cirrhosis of the liver. But I had been showing gradual signs of recovery before Anslinger got to me. I am Billie Holiday, an activist for justice. People still talk about me 62 years after my death.
I am Coretta Scott King, born on April 27, 1927, to my mama, Bernice Scott, and my daddy, Obadiah Scott. After finishing grade school and graduating Antioch College in 1951, I met my husband, who you all know is a legend, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Boston in 1952, and the rest is history. We married in 53, took part in the bus boycotts in 55, marched on Washington in 63, and continued to fight for Negro rights in 64 and 65. In the midst of all this, I had the hardest job of all. Raising 4 children in a world where they would be hated just for the color of their skin. If that doesn't put some fight in a woman, I'm not sure what will. On April 4th, 1968, I had received news that I had prayed would never reach my ears. My husband had been assassinated when he was away in Tennessee. But just because he had passed on did not mean I was going to let his legacy go with him. I founded the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change around his hometown in Atlanta in 1981, which is probably what a good amount of you know me for. Or maybe you know me for winning the 15-year fight with Congress to get Martin's birthday recognized as a federal holiday in 1983. Whether you knew me or not, You know me now. I am Coretta Scott King, a woman who successfully raised up 4 legacy-driven children, a civil and women's rights activist, and a part of a legacy I believe will live on forever. I am Coretta.
We're going to have a break right here for 10 minutes. And so enjoy yourself, relax yourself, take a stretch. And when you come back, we're going to talk about the abolitionists and the activists. And it's going to be really, really great. Don't miss this last part. And then we're going to have the induction into the World Hall of Love. And we're going to hear from such an outstanding speaker that we have today. We're going to have Senator David Haley. And so come back in 10 minutes. Get back in your seats by then. Thank you again for being a part of us today. My message is thanks again for being with us, and continue to have fun with us and learn. We, I think, said listen, learn, and laugh. And that's what you want to do. We're so excited also because we have from the youngest to the oldest participating in this program. It's a program that's family oriented, it's historically based. It's the first time we know of anybody doing a program where all of the impressions are directed toward our ancestors, our deceased, our good leadership legacies, the legacy of those who have gone on. And remember, when we talk about leadership and legacies, those are not titles. They are active words for people to be directed by, to learn what to do so that you can have somebody do a follow-up of you in terms of yourself being a legend, a leadership person, a legacy. So some of us haven't thought about anything that we want to do, but we hope that this will inspire us to do so. And next time when we do our second series, if you know young people or old people, whoever you want, we don't call old people, we say senior citizens. Age is just a number. Age is just a number. And we're all learning something every day while we're on this earth. And so this is a different kind of experience. We're told that it's a historical lesson without having to go in our original classroom, that it's done virtually, and that we're going to dig deeper the next time. We're going to go broader, and we're going to be involving more partners and just shaping up this time. This time we added to our partnerships, and when we get to that part, we'll tell you about it. But I can't help but just tell you, when we were in Tulsa also, we had an opportunity to attend service that Sunday when the massacre program started, and we went to the historic. They've added this to the front of the name of the church. It's called Vernon AME Church. AME is a Methodist church, but they have UCC, another church that's the United Church of Christ, and they're going to be partnering with us. They are also in Tulsa, Oklahoma, on Peoria Avenue. And now we have the historic Vernon AME Church has told us that they are going to partner with us for this program. This is a part of the area where the Black Wall Street massacre occurred, and where they have restored the church, and now they're working on the lower level of it. This is the church where the politicians gathered the Sunday that the service occurred when I was there. Many, many people were there to a packed church. And so I was happy that God allowed me to be a part of that lineup. And so now I have begun talking with the pastor, and we're going to see what our partnership leads to. So we want to see that in our next session that we do for next year. But anyway, if you know people who have creative talent or just want to try out, this is kind of the place to do it before you get to the big screen. And who knows, we may work our way to the big screen. But we are ready. We'll be ready for you in just a moment. So Let's get started in just a second here, as soon as our technical engineer brings us back before you. So have a good second session. The first was really good. We talked about educators, entrepreneurs, and related topics. That was a knockout. The person you saw doing Coretta Scott King is 14 years old. The person you saw doing Billie Holiday is 19 years old. They are our Maine Avenue family members. And so now we are going to look at the course of U.S. history, where many brave souls have fought courageously for the cause of freedom. Some have even died in the fight for the emancipation of slaves, for women's rights, and for civil rights. We must never forget the sacrifices made by our predecessors in the struggle for justice, for their contributions. And we say thank you. Thank you for the next group that you're going to be sharing with.
I am an African American woman, born on March 24th, 1912 in Richmond, Virginia. I never married and I do not have any children. However, I've had a full life. As a civil rights and women's rights activist, I proudly focused on African American women, unemployment, and voter awareness. Yes, I boldly stood against lynching and for reforms to the criminal justice system in the 1930s. I had a long association with the YWCA and later dedicated much of my professional energy to bringing about a profound change. Mary McLeod Bethune, educator and founder of the National Council of Negro Women, inspired me to begin working with this organization, and I did for 4 decades. Outside of my mother, Mary McLeod Bethune and Eleanor Roosevelt made the greatest impact on my life. It's true, I was considered a member of the Civil Rights Six due to my participation with the Civil Rights Movement. We sure did fight hard. Years later, in 1994, President Bill Clinton presented me with the Presidential Medal of Honor. President Barack Obama called me the godmother of the Civil Rights Movement. And President George W. Bush bestowed the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor to me in 2004. The door is open to many of our youth now. Many times when people are going through doors, I could hear the stories of how those doors got open. My fight has always been to make our nation a more open and inclusive place for people of every race, gender, background, and faith. I wasn't afraid to fight for what was right, and I fought to the end. I am Dorothy Irene Height.
I'm often called the First Lady of Civil Rights and the Mother of the Freedom Movement. You could rightfully say that it was my refusal to give up my seat on the bus to a white man in Montgomery, Alabama, that invigorated the struggle for racial equality. My name? Rosa Parks. And my story is not that complicated. It was December 1st, 1955. Segregation was the law of the land. I was instructed to give up my seat on the bus to a white man who was standing because all the seats on the white section were taken. I refused to move. I wasn't tired physically, no more tired than I generally am after a day of work. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in. To make a long story short, when I didn't move, the police were called. They came and arrested me, and they put me in jail. Well, my community rallied around me. And from December 5th, 1955 to December 20th, 1956, they boycotted the buses in Montgomery as a demonstration against segregation. The boycott was led by a young minister named Martin Luther King Jr., who was recruited to lead the protest movement. It was amazing. One day of protest turned into another day of protest, into a week, then a month, then a year. Negroes were fighting for their equal rights. As a result of the boycott, a Montgomery federal court ruled that any law requiring racially segregated seating on buses violated the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Now, the 14th Amendment guarantees equality in the pursuit of life, liberty, and property. It guarantees equal protection under the law. I have been actively engaged in the cause of civil rights for decades. In fact, the only thing that stopped me was my own death on October 24, 2005. I could have never envisioned that my small act of defiance would become the catalyst for the civil rights movement and the emergence of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as the leader of the civil rights movement. I could have never imagined it.
My name is Harriet Tubman, and I'm one for the ages. I escaped my master and fulfilled my destiny as conductor of the Underground Railroad. Don't let the name fool you. The Underground Railroad was a network of secret routes and safe houses that I used to help my sisters and brothers escape to freedom. I was good at my job. They put a bounty of $40,000 on my head. I was wanted, dead or alive. But they never did catch me. I lived till I was 91 years old, just to spite them. I led many of my people to freedom with a bounty on my head. I was an activist for women's rights, a Civil War nurse, a Union spy, and a military leader. That's right, you're looking at General Tubman. I've always been about doing what's right. I remember when I was 12 years old and stood between a slave and a white man who was trying to throw a 2-pound weight at his skull. Hit mine instead. Gave me headaches and narcolepsy for the rest of my born life. But I started getting vivid dreams and hallucinations, visions sent to me by God himself. When my father was set free, I learned that my owner, if you can abide by such a term, had also set me and my family free too in his last will. Didn't matter much none to my new owner though. He intended to work us to our dying breaths. So you see, I had no choice but to run away and never look back. Ben and Henry, my brothers, they's too afraid to run. They started the journey with me but turned back before we ever crossed state lines. Me? I traveled 90 miles north to Pennsylvania using the Underground Railroad. I was finally free. But being free wasn't enough. I returned to the South for my niece and her children. And then I could come back for my mama and daddy. Soon enough, I was returned for just about everybody. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger. You can quote me on that. In 2016, the United States Treasury announced my face would be put on the $20 bill. All I can say is, it's been a long time coming, and I'm awaiting.
Hello, my name is Sojourner Truth. I'm a famous human rights crusader, but I didn't start out that way. I was born into slavery in 1797. At age 9, I was sold for $100 and a flock of sheep. That's how much my life was supposedly worth. My master was a cruel and violent man, more so than usual if you can believe. He beat me regularly. Thankfully, he sold me to another man, and then that man sold me to another, for I was viewed as property, nothing more. My third master promised me freedom in 1826. He lied. But a promise is a promise, and I was free in my heart, and I decided by the will of God I would be free in life. I escaped all the way to New York, and once I was free, I acted like it. After the New York anti-slavery law was passed, my previous master illegally sold my 5-year-old son. So I sued him, and I won. I'm proud to say I was the first black woman to sue a white man in American court and win. I went further than that. Ever heard the phrase, "Ain't I a woman?" That's the famous speech I delivered in 1851 at a women's convention in Ohio. Some people wanted me dead for the truth I spoke. Know what I told them? Now, if you want me to get out of the world, you had better get women voting soon. I shan't go till I can do that. I have power in my words. I used that power to be the best dang women's activist I could be. Eventually, I was taking meetings with Abraham Lincoln himself. You see, I'm my own master now, and you can be too.
There's no limit to your power once you know just how much you possess. For God lives within you, and if your mission is righteous, march on and speak your truth.
I am Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey, aka Frederick Douglass. My mother died when I was about 7 years old. My father was a white man. After my mother died, I was sent to Maryland to live with Mrs. Alt. She began to teach me the alphabet and some small words. I learned to read and write at about 12 years old. In 1838, I escaped with my wife-to-be, Anna Murray. I began my newspaper, The North Star. In 1852, I delivered the speech, "What to a slave is the 4th of July?" I answered, "A day that reveals to him, more than other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant licensed victim." When the Civil War broke out in 1861, I petitioned President Lincoln to allow black slaves to join the Union Army. This was after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. I worked tirelessly to enlist black slaves. 2 of my sons joined the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, which was famous for the Battle of Fort Wagner. On the 24th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, 1886, in Washington, D.C., I explained why justice is denied, poverty is enforced, ignorance prevails, and where any one class made to feel society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither person nor property is safe. I have published several novels in my lifetime, wrote many papers, and accomplished much. I was bestowed with many honors, but the one thing I want to leave with young people is that knowledge is power. So study and continue your endeavors to learn and get active in worthy causes, with hopes of what I have accomplished will help those who come after me to pursue life, liberty, and equality for our African American sisters and brothers.
Thank you very much. Now we move forward, looking at the United States of America and how it has been and continues to be the premier government structure in the world. Our brand of democracy has been one of the most fruitful. It has not always been the most equitable. Many times our country has been burdened with growing pains. Yet, you know that we have endured as a nation. Much of the progress toward advancement is attributable to the work done by many of our forefathers. Here are just a few of them. Watch.
I am a proud self-taught lawyer and statesman who served as the 16th President of the United States from March 1861 through April 1865. I was born February 12, 1809, in a log cabin on a farm in Hardin County, Kentucky. After marrying my wife, Mary Todd, we had 4 sons. Through the turbulent times, I led the nation through the American Civil War, the country's greatest moral, cultural, constitutional, and political crisis. My famous Gettysburg Address on January 1st, 1863, issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which started the procedure for freeing slaves in America during the Civil War. This allowed black soldiers to fight for the Union against the Confederacy. It was also the precursor of the 13th Amendment, which made slavery and indentured servitude illegal in the United States. I now speak to you from the celestial skies. I did not live to see the enactment in 1865 because I was assassinated. Part of the efforts around the emancipation resulted in bold steps taken by people of color. And a day called Juneteenth, now an official federal holiday, short for June 19th, which marks the day federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865 to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people be freed. Juneteenth is a momentous occasion. Now it's President Biden, the 46th President of the United States, enshrines June 19th as a national day to commemorate the end of slavery in the United States. I am Abraham Lincoln.
John Lewis is my name. I'm the son of a sharecropper and a child of segregation. I was born outside of Troy, Alabama on February the 21st, 1940. In fact, people call me the boy from Troy. I was one of the 13 original Freedom Riders working to challenge segregation. Our goal was to contest the policies of southern states regarding segregated seating on buses, which, by the way, violated federal policy for interstate transportation. I also stood alongside Martin Luther King Jr. in the fight for freedom. I was one of the big six leaders of the civil rights movement in the 60s. We marched in New Orleans, Louisiana, Rock Hill, South Carolina, Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, Alabama, just to name a few places. In each state, we were either brutally beaten and or jailed. I distinctly remember March 7, 1965, known as Bloody Sunday. It was a historical turning point in the fight for voting rights. There were hundreds of us nonviolently marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Alabama to demand expanded voting rights in the state. A group of Alabama state troopers arrived to confront us. They beat us mercilessly. I nearly died from my injuries. It was an horrific experience, and I believe the assault on us that day helped lead to the Voting Rights Act. The truth is, many good men and women have died for the cause of freedom. And yes, we rattled chains, we made good trouble, but the cost was high. I cry sometimes, even now, but in the midst of it all, I find hope. I guess I'm an optimist at heart. I think people are more good than bad, so I keep pushing forward. I've been fighting long and hard for freedom, and I'll keep fighting. In 1986, I was elected to the House of Representatives in Georgia's 5th District. I held that position until my death on July 17, 2020. I've been told by many people that I'm one of the most respected members of Congress, and I'm very honored to be held in such high esteem. I've also overseen many renewals of the Voting Rights Act, which is near and dear to my heart. When the Supreme Court struck down part of the law in 2013, I felt my soul cry out. It was a dagger into the heart of voting rights. And today, in 2021, we must collectively stand up and fight for our right to free and accessible elections. We are a democracy, and we cannot afford to abandon the fight.
My name is Lyndon Johnson, 36th President of the United States. These words are from my remarks to Congress on March 15, 1965. I speak tonight for the dignity of man and the destiny of democracy. Many of the issues of civil rights are very complex and most difficult. But about this, there can and should be no argument. Every American citizen must have an equal right to vote. There is no reason which can excuse the denial of that right. Yet the harsh fact is that in many places in this country, men and women are kept from voting simply because they are Negroes. Wednesday, I will send to Congress a law designed to eliminate illegal barriers to the right to vote. It will ensure that properly registered individuals are not prohibited from voting. To those who seek to avoid action by their national government in their own communities, the answer is simple. Open your polling places to all your people. Allow men and women to register and vote, whatever the color of their skin. Extend the rights of citizenship to every citizen of this land. But even if we pass this bill, the battle will not be over. What happened in Selma is part of a far larger movement which reaches into every section and state of America. It is the effort of American Negroes to secure for themselves the full blessings of American life. Their cause must be our cause too, because it is not just Negroes, but really it is all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome. The time of justice has now come. I tell you that I believe sincerely that no force can hold it back.
My spirit for civil rights activism began as a teenager when I boycotted my paper route. I earned a master's degree in organic chemistry from Fisk University, and I participated in the Nashville sit-ins to desegregate lunch counters. I organized voter registration drives and lobbied Southern state legislators to recognize the right to vote of African Americans. In 1965, I moved to Washington, D.C. to open a local chapter of SNCC to help address D.C.'s racial issues, lack of home rule, and lack of political representation in Congress. I led a protest against discriminatory bus fare increases and started the Free D.C. movement in support of home rule. I co-founded a federal jobs program called Pride Incorporated and hired more than 1,000 unemployed black men to work cleaning alleys and managing small businesses. In 1972, I was elected as president of the D.C. Board of Education, my first political appointment. As president, I appointed the first woman to be school superintendent of a major urban area. With home rule established in 1974, I served on Washington's first city council for 22 years and as mayor of the District of Columbia for 16. As council member and mayor, I promoted African American businesses, improved city services and finances, and created my signature summer jobs program. I started home buying assistance programs for working class residents and food programs, transportation and medical services, and affordable housing for senior citizens. I increased employment opportunities for district residents. I placed African Americans in thousands of management positions, which created a new black middle class, and I appointed women to leadership positions traditionally held by men. I'm called a man of the people, champion of the young, the aged, and the poor, architect of the government's infrastructure under home rule, and the most powerful local politician of my generation. Through God's grace and mercy, and the love and support of the people of Washington, I overcame a drug and alcohol addiction that affected my life and my career, and my ability to serve. As chief executive and public servant, despite my personal troubles, I did my best to make Washington, D.C. a national symbol of African American self-governance. I am Marion Berry Jr., Mayor for Life. Thank you, Maine Ministries, for this honor.
Though I am known by many as Mr. Civil Rights, I was born Thurgood Marshall, July 2nd, 1908 in Baltimore, Maryland, to William Canfield Marshall and Norma Williams Marshall. My father was a railroad porter and my mother an elementary school teacher. When my father had a day off from work, he often took my brother and I to the courthouse to watch the legal proceedings and listen to the arguments. Afterwards, the three of us would debate the cases amongst each other. It was these experiences that taught me to love the law. Once I graduated high school, I attended Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, graduating with honors in 1930. Because of my experiences at the courthouse with my family, I knew I wanted to pursue a law degree, so I applied to the University of Maryland Law School but was denied because I wasn't white. Ultimately, I attended Howard University Law School, graduating first in my class in 1933. It was here I met Charles Hamilton Houston, a law professor, attorney, and my mentor. He taught me the importance of the law and how I could use it to affect social change. I took it and ran with it. After a stint in private practice, I went to work for the NAACP under Mr. Houston. I would later become the head of the legal office of the NAACP until the NAACP Legal Defense Fund was formed in 1940, and I was named the chief, all by the age of 32. As my career progressed, it became abundantly clear that I was one of the greatest legal minds and most effective litigator of my time, of any race. I am best known for my 1954 Supreme Court victory in Brown v. Board of Education, making the case that segregated schools were inherently unequal. It was my victory striking down separate but equal that was the catalyst for schools to begin to desegregate throughout the United States. I would go on to serve as a federal judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit from 1961 to 1965, followed by a 2-year stint as the U.S. Solicitor General. 2 years later, in 1967, I was appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, where I would serve until my retirement in 1991. I passed away January 24, 1993 as a result of heart failure, leaving behind a wife, 2 sons, and a legacy of civil rights activism and legal scholarship for others to follow.
I am Eleanor Roosevelt. Most know me as the former First Lady of the United States, a position that afforded me the opportunity to address those issues that pertain to civil rights in this country. I believe the United States cannot claim to be a democracy if all Americans do not have democratic rights. I firmly believe that education, housing, employment, and voting are basic human rights that society is morally and politically obligated to provide its citizens. In 1927, I met a woman who became a lifelong friend in Mary McLeod Bethune. Mary was the president of the National Association of Colored Women, the largest Negro women's political organization in the country. Mary was also a Republican, like many Negro Americans, due to the dominance of white segregationist Southerners in the Democratic Party and their support of Jim Crow policies. Despite our friendship, she supported Herbert Hoover's re-election bid in 1932. When Franklin became president, Mary became a trusted advisor to both myself and my husband. Throughout my husband's presidency, I did not always make things easy for Franklin, as I felt a responsibility to speak out on racial injustices. I believe that segregation mocks American values. We have never been willing to face this problem, to line it up with basic underlying beliefs in democracy. In my heart, I believe racial injustice is the biggest threat to American democracy. We cannot expect people to be good citizens and not give them the opportunity to take part in our government. We cannot continue to honor Jim Crow. America will have defeated fascism abroad only to defend racism at home. America's great sacrifice would have been a shallow victory. I have hope, though. You see, Mary and I in 1945 were among the U.S. delegates to the San Francisco conference that gave birth to the United Nations. We lobbied for the creation of the charter dedicated to human rights. I have hope as I believe in America and in the American people and in our quest for a more perfect union.
Thank you very, very much. That was a beautiful, beautiful group of people sharing some very serious information. And so now we are going to be reminded by Leonard Upson of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King and his impact on lives of those of us in America and around the world. He felt that Dr. King should be included in our leadership and legacy spotlight. And we agree. So what Leonard Upson had to say about Martin Luther King. Dr. King was an extraordinary leader whose impact still lingers to this day. In his fight for civil rights for all people, he stood in the gap for racially and financially disenfranchised communities. A graduate of the renowned Morehouse University, Dr. King was a minister and activist who became the most visible leader of the African American civil rights movement from 1955 until his assassination in 1968. Dr. King advanced civil rights through nonviolence and civil disobedience, inspired by his Christian beliefs and modeling the nonviolent activism of Mahatma Gandhi. In 1955, Dr. King was recruited to lead the Montgomery bus boycott, which was very successful and a precursor to the civil rights movement. He subsequently became the first president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the Southern Leadership Conference, through which he helped organize many nonviolent protests. On October 14, 1964, Dr. King won the Nobel Peace Prize for combating racial inequality through nonviolent resistance. As a result of Dr. King's committed work to advance the cause of justice, he became a target of the U.S. government. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover considered King a radical and man-made object of FBI counter-terror. From 1963 until his death in 1968, Dr. King's life was under constant threat. To this day, the cause of civil rights still remains unresolved. That was a remarkable presentation. Hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did, because now we're getting ready to move on to the Honorable Lisa M. Gregory, who is an administrative law judge for the District of Columbia Housing Rental Commission, where she will officially induct the Legacy Legends into the Maine Avenue Ministries World Hall of Love.
Good afternoon, America, and everyone watching. By the authority granted me by Dr. Mary Ivy, President and CEO of Maine Avenue, Inc., Maine Avenue Ministries, and founder of Love, Race, and Grace, I take true pleasure in installing each of you who are serving in the capacity of legacy impressionist into the Maine Avenue World Hall of Love. Your names have already been called, and you are listed in the record. At this time, I declare each of you a member in the Maine World Hall of Love. We know you take this occasion seriously. Leadership and legacy is a reminder for each of us to be careful of the ways in which we will lead our lives. Congratulations. We know each of you will always be role models for love, race, and grace. Thank you for your time spent today and forever.
Thank you, Judge Gregory. At this time, we're excited to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening, the Honorable David Haley, Esquire, Senator, Kansas State Legislature. Senator Haley is a member of the Kansas Senate, representing the 4th District since 2001, with over 21 years of service. Senator Haley is currently the longest serving member of the Kansas Senate. For 16 of the 21 years, Senator Haley has served as the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and for many of those years was the only attorney in the Kansas Senate, the only attorney in the Kansas Senate. Before serving as senator, he was elected to 3 terms in the Kansas House of Representatives. Senator Haley's father, former Ambassador to George Haley, was the first Black state senator ever elected in the state of Kansas. As a second-generation senator, Senator Haley is the longest-serving Black senator in the history of the state of Kansas. He is a champion for criminal justice reform, and he is an advocate for reform initiatives. Help us invite and listen to Senator David Haley, our speaker for the time.
What a brave new world and this brand new technology on this great day. Dr. Ivy, thank you for that generous introduction, and thank each of you who are here today joining us in this inaugural for the program that we are having, that we've been treated to this afternoon. For love, for race, for grace, I'm personally elevated to join this afternoon. And I don't know about everyone else that's on, but I have become so inspired, genuinely inspired by the recitations and the remembrances of the legacies that we've just been treated to. I'm just so more inspired, as each of us can be, to remember who has come before us and those who are with us and that are still resonant and should be in our everyday lives. Again, Dr. Mary Ivy, what you're doing with Maine Avenue Ministries, and for those of you who worked to bring this program together and to allow me to share with you briefly this afternoon, indeed, I'm personally grateful, and indeed, I'm elevated to be with you this afternoon. So while we were listening, and as I kind of looked at, as often we do, what I wanted to share with you, and I wanted to shift very quickly to remind us, as I've been reminded, of the words of the Black National Anthem, the Negro anthem, if you will. When I was listening to many of the recitations, a general theme has come out that we want to embrace, certainly as we listen to the legacies of those who've gone before to bring us to this point in time. Certainly one that says, let not our feet grow weary, as is said there. Have we not come to this place for which our fathers and our mothers sighed? And that question should be flowing now from breast to breast to each of us, lifted up by James Weldon Johnson, that as we come to this point, it's incumbent on each of us that that DNA that we are from, that DNA has a repositive memory that's inculcated in us all. Don't you feel it? As you heard some of the reminders of those who have a story to tell of the struggles that they came through. And when we think about where we are today in the midst of our social crises, as we look at the rise, as we have many of those groups dedicated to holding some of us back, as we listen to the repressions in not only our liberty, but our academic opportunities. What touches me mostly, being in Kansas, and many of us across the country, are our voting rights that are being assaulted. And as we look forward to next year, 2022, here in Kansas, we will have redistricting as we draw the lines for where our congressional and our state legislative districts will be. That will happen in each and every one of your districts as well. I'm sharing this with you to say that it became incumbent on me, and I probably should lift a special thank you up to Mr. Henry Clay, Gregory, I think that's his name, who portrayed my late uncle, Alex Haley, and did so very well. He would be proud. Uncle Alex will be celebrating his 100th birth, the anniversary of his 100th birth in Henning, Tennessee next month. And Uncle Alex used to say, and I think it's incumbent on each of us now who remember and look to our history and recognize where we are today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, while we are clothed in our right minds and have the opportunity to look at so many options that were hard fought that brought us here. Again, that our DNA has that collective memory. And Uncle Alex used to say, anytime you see a turtle sitting on top of a fence post, you know he didn't get there by himself. And I, the most recent of the proud beneficiary of those who've gone before us, who put this turtle David Haley, on the fence post, recognize and realize it's incumbent on me, and it's incumbent on each of you and each of us to realize that in this time and in this space, we have to make a difference. I hearken back to say that for me, partially, Dr. Ivy and others, as Maine Avenue continues to look at how these legacies have impacted us, that during this fellowship that we have, that we strengthen ourselves and gird ourselves to look at the issues that are affecting us today and apply the same fortitude that ran like a thread through the legacies we've just been treated to, and the tremendous and inspirational recapitulations that each of them brought, and to pick where that battle is and apply ourselves there. You know, a young man told me the other day, inspiring me, that we're survivors. He said, he went on back, he said, you know, we're here, we're the survivors. We are those whose ancestors weathered everything and the strength to bring us to this point for times like these. Have we not come to the place for which our fathers and our mothers sighed? They said, oh, if we can just get our next generation to this point, if we could just suffer this ingratitude or this indignity, if we can just try and find a way to get a registration to vote, or if we could just educate ourselves to empower a successive generation, we can do it. Are we not there? Has not that time come for our generation and for those generations that are upon us to take our place? Or will we lose those hard-fought battles? This young man who was talking to me said, I come from the strong. He said, I come from a history of those who have been enslaved and come through Jim Crow. And he said to me this, and I ask each of you to think about it. He said, I came from those who decided they weren't going to be enslaved during the Middle Passage and jumped over into the sea, into the Atlantic Ocean. And I said, wait a minute. We are not from those who, sadly, our brothers and our sisters who jumped into the ocean. We were the ones who went on to endure the greatest tragedies that humankind has ever known, judged to be inferior, judged to be enslaved because purely of pigment and the color of our skin. No, we were the ones who didn't go overboard, who didn't jump over. Those are our ancestors who went on to endure the whips and the scorns of time. We are the ones inside of the DNA that flows in each of us who know what it's like to face adversity and to recognize the problem and try to chart our way out of it. That's who we are. That's who we are kin to. That is inside of the core of every one of us. And so I want to ask you, please, I really do. I'm so honored, genuinely, to be a part of this today. As we look at this fellowship and we define, as we close, we define where we are in this space and what is the fight before us. As I mentioned already, mine is looking at redistricting and voting rights. We will have that fight in Kansas. I urge each of you, please, where we talked about registration to vote, and we know that they're trying to roll back the clock, that there are forces at work, those that complain about too many rights being conferred to so many. I urge you, you'd be surprised right in your own home sometimes, of those who don't even participate in the right to vote. In your own home, you know what I'm talking about. And now watch when they draw the lines and gerrymandering comes out. Because in our state legislatures, there are those of a particular mindset that don't believe in the balance of inclusion. And they couldn't take it away for the litmus test of literacy. How many beans are there in a jar? They couldn't take the vote away for having to pay your property tax. They've tried everything. And now they'll try it through drawing these lines in my state and in yours that will marginalize and indeed keep us from doing that. So that's my fight. I ask you, please, what is your fight? What do you look around and see? There's some discussion now as to whether we put this endemic, historic tide that was most recognized recently during Juneteenth being a federal holiday, as has been mentioned, but it's not necessarily at the state level. When we look at the impact of race, of color, as it has evolved within our country and how it has inherently played a role in what some have called critical race theory that is created to societies. When it comes to academia, when it comes to professional and career, of course, when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to the levels of incursion within the judicial system, race has mattered, and race has played an historic role in how we have reached this point here in 2021 from when we first came to these shores in 1619 in America. So don't let people tell you, please, that we don't have a role to play. Please be encouraged. And please pay attention to those things that should matter, including the science. Definitely, my friends, we hear things back and forth, and we always know that when white America catches a cold, Black America gets pneumonia. So when we have those disparities that are created, don't let us be heir to not doing everything we can to mitigate often those inequalities that a broader community is glad to see. We look at who right now during this pandemic are suffering most, those without health insurance, too often disproportionately in the Black community. And what can we do to mitigate that? Listening to the argument pro and con, for the vax, anti-vax, but looking at the science too. We listen very closely, and I think we need to continue to when we talk about the violence in our streets, pro and con, set upon by those whom we pay with our tax dollars to serve and protect, and then to also set upon from within by our neighbor, that child down the street that we've known a long time and never knew that he would take it this far. The crises are often very readily in our face. The resolutions are not. And that's why it's incumbent on each of us in our time and in our space, with God's grace, we can make a difference. I thank you, Dr. Ivy, again for this opportunity to share. And I encourage each of us who've been inspired, as indeed I have, by the recapitulation of so many who've gone before us, to remember what's in our DNA and where we've come from, and to push forward on. That so too, it can be said that in our time, where we find ourselves and in our spaces where we are, that because we paid attention and because we applied it, in our time and in our space, that with God's grace, we too made a difference. So I ask you again, through love and through race and through grace, that we overcome that violence and we reach out to our respective allies wherever they might be, and realize we are one community that should not be divided by those social or economic or cultural or racial divisions that many want to put on. That it comes all across the board, and we reach across to them, and that in through that grace, in our time and in our space, with God's grace, we will make a difference. Thank you, and let us march on until that victory is won.
Thank you, Senator Thank you for the time you have given to enrich all of us and with your thoughts, your experience. And we just appreciate you respecting our goals and understanding and appreciate what our objectives are. And we thank you and include you as one of the Maine Avenue Ministries families now, so that you can join with us as we move to session 2. And we want to say to everybody, thanks to everyone within earshot and those who wanted to watch with us today and were unable to do so. When we finish, I believe that Autumn is going to share with you how you may do that. And we want you to be able to do so. But we appreciate your participation, your time, your support, your contributions, whatever it is that you have to offer. And now don't forget, 1, this was our first attempt. 2, we used many of our Maine Avenue scholarship recipients, and Autumn is one of them. And the other people, there were several people that you saw who were doing impressions or whatever you want to call them, imitating, whatever you want to call it, but still they came because we asked them for Maine Avenue or they volunteered. But we are helping them see a brighter view of what their lives will become. And we want you to come along and partner with us and promote this cause of love, race, and grace. So as we critique this program for the first time, we invite anything positive that you have to bring our way, because it will be positive going forward. We are now ready to go back to NBC and ask them to share with us, and then to move on to other mass media and corporate America to see if they will help us through Maine Avenue Ministries, Love, Race, and Grace to try to come together, to be one America, and to look at that DNA and not let it at all deter us to what needs to be done to keep America the great America that it truly is. Thank you all, and good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your evening.